I'm a 34-year-old male, and I thought I'd vent here a bit, because this has been eating at me for months now. This is going to be a long one, so buckle up. I'm using a throwaway account for obvious reasons, since some people know my main account. So, this whole mess started about 6 months before my wife, a 36-year-old female, dropped the divorce bomb on me. We'd been married for 1 year at that point, together for 4 years total, and honestly, everything was perfect before all this started. She was the sweetest person I'd ever met. Always planning little surprise dates, leaving cute notes in my lunch. Yeah, I know, we were a patent couple. And being incredibly thoughtful about everything. She'd make me these amazing home-cooked meals when I had rough days at work, remember every little anniversary, even stupid ones like our first movie together, and was just perfect. Everyone used to tell us we were relationship goals. We never even had any real fights, just the normal couple bickering about dumb stuff. I honestly thought everything was solid. We had our little arguments about stupid things, like whose turn it was to do the dishes, or me leaving my socks on the floor, but nothing major. But then, things started getting weird. It was small stuff at first, like how she suddenly got super interested in our finances. I don't mean the normal, hey, we should probably start saving for a house kind of way. No, she started asking really specific questions about all our accounts, our investments, even stuff from before we got married. She'd never shown any interest in that stuff before. I work in finance, so she always just let me handle everything. Here's the thing, she never needed to worry about money. I made sure of that. I wasn't out here blowing cash or keeping secrets. I was grinding, making sure we were comfortable, ensuring she never had to stress over finances. She had access to everything she needed and never had to ask twice for anything. If she wanted something, I made it happen. So why the sudden deep dive into every cent I had? It wasn't like she'd ever cared before. I remember this one night specifically. We were having dinner, and out of nowhere she started asking about my inheritance from my grandparents, like really detailed questions about how it was stored, what it was in, all that stuff. When I asked her why she was suddenly so interested, she just shrugged it off, saying, "Oh, I just think I should know these things. We're married after all." Then she started taking these weird phone calls. She'd be in the kitchen or whatever, the phone would ring, and suddenly she'd walk into another room and close the door. I'm not the jealous type or anything, but it was just different. She never used to do that before when she'd come back. If I asked who it was, she'd always have some vague answer, like, "Oh, just work stuff," or "just catching up with an old friend." The late nights at work started picking up too. She's a project manager at a tech company, so late nights aren't completely unusual. But it went from maybe once a month to 2 to 3 times a week. Here's the thing that really got me. I checked our shared credit card statement, since I always handle the bills, and noticed she wasn't charging dinner on those late nights. So either she was eating the world's longest series of packed lunches, or something wasn't adding up. But the thing that really set off alarm bells? She started obsessively checking our online banking, like multiple times a day. I only noticed because I work at a bank, and our system shows login activity. She'd never checked it more than maybe once a month before, usually just to make sure her paycheck went through. I didn't want to be that paranoid husband, you know, the kind that reads into every little thing and makes mountains out of molehills. But I've worked in finance long enough to know that when someone suddenly gets super interested in money and accounts, something's usually up. It's like when clients start asking weird questions about their accounts. 9 times out of 10, they're planning something. I started paying more attention to other stuff too, like how she'd get really quiet whenever I talked about future plans. We were supposed to go on this big vacation for our 2nd anniversary, and every time I brought it up, she'd change the subject or give really non-committal answers. And don't even get me started on how she reacted when I mentioned maybe starting to try for kids soon. The weirdest part? She started getting really interested in my work schedule, like wanting to know exactly when I'd be home, when I had late meetings, that kind of thing. At first, I thought maybe she was planning some kind of surprise. Our anniversary was coming up. But something about it just felt off. I started keeping a note on my phone of all these little things, not in a creepy way, just dates and basic details. Part of my job is looking for patterns in data, and man, when I looked at that note after a few weeks, the pattern was pretty clear. Something was definitely up. I know some of you are probably reading this thinking, dude, she was obviously cheating. And yeah, maybe that thought crossed my mind, but honestly, my gut was telling me it was something else. The focus on finances, the sudden interest in my schedule and our accounts. It felt more calculated than that. Like one night, she brought it up again over dinner. "Hey, how exactly does your 401k work? Like what happens if something happens to you? Who gets it?" She poked at her pasta like the question was casual. I set my fork down. "Why do you keep asking about this stuff lately?" I tried to keep my tone light, but I could feel my chest tightening. "Did I do something? Are you upset about something?" She barely looked up. "No, I just think we should be more prepared, in case life throws something unexpected our way. Something about the way she said it makes my skin crawl. I actually couldn't ignore my gut anymore, so I decided to do something that still makes me feel kind of guilty, even though it ended up saving my ass. I started quietly protecting myself. Yeah, I know how that sounds, like I was being paranoid or didn't trust my wife. Trust me, I spent many sleepless nights feeling like the worst husband ever for even thinking about this stuff. But here's the thing about working in finance. You see people get screwed over all the time because they didn't protect themselves. I can't count how many times I've had clients come in, devastated because they trusted someone completely and got burned. So I figured, better safe than sorry, right? The first thing I did was document everything, and I mean everything. Every gift we'd ever given each other. We actually exchanged plenty. Every major purchase, every joint account, every investment. I even went through our wedding gifts and made a detailed list. I probably looked like a crazy person with all these spreadsheets, but whatever. Then I did something that honestly felt really sneaky at the time. I opened a separate account at a different bank, not to hide money or anything shady like that, just to have something that was completely mine. I moved my personal inheritance from my grandparents into it, about $50,000, since that was technically separate property anyway. I also started keeping all my receipts and taking photos of expensive stuff we owned. I literally went around the house one day when she was working late and photographed every valuable thing we had, especially the stuff we'd given each other as gifts. It felt like I was doing some weird insurance inventory or something, LOL. The trickiest part was figuring out what to do about our joint investments. We had this portfolio we'd built together, and she'd never shown any interest in it before, but suddenly she's asking all these questions about when we could liquidate certain positions and what the penalties would be for early withdrawal. So I started slowly, very slowly, moving my personal contributions into more secure positions. Again, nothing illegal or shady, just protecting what was mine to begin with. There was this one day that really confirmed I was doing the right thing. She came home from work all excited about this great investment opportunity one of her work friends had told her about. She started talking about how we should maybe cash out some of our long-term investments for it. When I asked for details, she got super vague and defensive. Red flag city, right? I also started paying more attention to our spending patterns. She'd always been pretty good with money, not a big spender or anything, but I noticed she'd started making a lot of small withdrawals from our joint account. Nothing huge that would raise immediate red flags, but when I added it all up, let's just say it was eye-opening. The whole time I was doing all this, I felt like such a dick. Here I was, a supposedly loving husband, basically preparing for everything to go to hell. Some nights I'd lie awake thinking maybe I was just being paranoid and creating problems that weren't there. But then she'd do something else, ask weirdly specific questions about our savings, wonder out loud what divorce settlements usually look like, or casually bring up how her friend got totally screwed over in her split, and suddenly I didn't feel so paranoid anymore. I even started keeping a record of when she was working late or taking those mysterious phone calls, just dates and times in a password-protected note on my phone. Not in a stalker way, but you know how sometimes you just need to prove you're not crazy? Yeah, that kind of thing. The hardest part was acting normal through all of this. Imagine sitting across from someone at dinner, laughing and talking about normal stuff, while you're also low-key preparing for them to potentially screw you over. It's exhausting, honestly. Every time she'd do something sweet or normal, I'd feel guilty all over again. I actually did try to talk to her about it many times, asked if something was on her mind, if there was anything we needed to talk about, but she just brushed it off, acted like I was imagining things, gave me nothing. Honestly, pushing harder would have just made her more careful about whatever she was up to. Sometimes the smartest move isn't confronting, it's shutting up and paying attention. Quick side note. Some of you might be thinking, dude, why didn't you just get marriage counseling or something? Well, I actually suggested it once, kind of casually. You should have seen how fast she shot that idea down. She said we were fine and I was just being insecure. Classic gaslighting, right? And then everything unraveled one morning. You know those moments that change your life forever? They never happen how you expect. No dramatic thunderstorm, no ominous music playing in the background, just a Tuesday. I was sitting at our kitchen island, having my usual coffee and scrolling through work emails on my phone. She was making toast, and I remember thinking how weird it was that she was up early, since she usually slept in on her work-from-home days, then she just did it. She pulled out this manila envelope from her work bag and slid it across the counter to me, like she was passing me the morning paper or something. I didn't even look at it at first, thought maybe it was just some house paperwork or whatever. But then I saw her face. She had this weird expression I'd never seen before, kind of blank but also satisfied. That's when I knew. I want a divorce, she said, super calm, like she was telling me we needed more milk from the store. I remember my coffee cup just hanging there halfway to my mouth, probably looking like a complete idiot. The crazy thing is, even though I'd been preparing for something bad to happen, this still felt like getting slapped in the face. I opened the envelope. Yep, divorce papers all filled out, just waiting for my signature. She'd clearly been planning this for a while, had probably already talked to a lawyer and everything. And there I was, still in my pajama pants, trying to process what the hell was happening. You know what's really messed up? My first thought wasn't even about our marriage ending. It was, thank God I moved that inheritance money. How screwed up is that? 4 years together, and in that moment all I could think about was being glad I'd protected my assets. She started giving me this rehearsed speech. I don't know, I'm not in love anymore. People grow apart, you know, it happens. Her voice was flat, rehearsed. She wouldn't look at me. Just last night, she was curled up against me on the couch, laughing at some dumb Netflix show, and now she was sitting here feeding me the most generic breakup speech imaginable. I let her talk, didn't interrupt, didn't react, probably looked stunned. But inside, my brain was running through a mental checklist: separate account, check; documentation of assets, check; photos of valuables, check. It was like my emotions got shoved into a corner while my survival instincts took over. When she finished, she just sat there watching, waiting for some kind of explosion. Instead, I took a slow sip of my now cold coffee, set it down, and said, okay. Her expression was priceless, like I'd just thrown a wrench in whatever reaction she was expecting. She blinked, scoffed. That's it. Okay, I shrugged. You're not even going to ask why. I exhaled, looking at her. Was it because I didn't give you what you deserved, or because I wasn't giving enough in this relationship? Her face shifted, surprise, then something else, something unreadable. No, she said, shaking her head. It's not that. You were good to me. I don't know. I don't think I want to be in a marriage anymore. I don't want to be committed like this. That was an answer, but not really. Not one that made sense anyway. And it confirmed what I already knew. There was more to this than she was saying. I let the silence stretch between us before finally saying, I'll have my lawyer look over the papers. For a split second, there was panic in her eyes, just a flicker before she masked it. Oh, you, already have a lawyer? Yeah. She forced a smile, tried to act unbothered. Great. That's great. I mean, no need to make this harder than it has to be, right? Yeah, sure. I'm sure that's the real reason she's in such a hurry. Red flag number 478. I felt nothing in the moment, just cold, detached. But that conversation stuck with me, echoing in the back of my mind long after it was over. The rest of that morning was surreal. She went to work in her home office while I sat there at the kitchen counter staring at these papers that were basically saying, hey, your life as you know it is over. Then I did what any rational person would do. I called in sick to work and started making phone calls. First to my lawyer, thank God I'd already quietly consulted one. Then to my bank to double-check all my accounts. The weirdest part? We still had dinner together that night. Like, who does that? Sits down to eat chicken stir-fry with someone who literally served them divorce papers that morning? But there we were, eating in this super awkward silence, both pretending this was somehow normal. I went to bed that night in our guest room. My choice needed space to think, lying there, looking at the ceiling, trying to figure out what her endgame was. Because this whole thing, the way she did it, something wasn't adding up. The divorce itself went surprisingly smoothly, probably because I didn't contest anything. I mean, what's the point of fighting to keep someone who clearly doesn't want to stay? I kept the house, bought her out, and split our joint accounts. Basic divorce stuff. But then things got weird. Like, really weird. 2 weeks after the settlement was finalized, she just disappeared. And I don't mean, oh, she's not returning my calls disappeared. I mean, poof, gone. Completely off the grid. At first, I didn't even notice because, you know, we were divorced. Why would I keep tabs on her? But then her friends started calling me. Turns out she'd quit her job, just walked in one day, handed in her resignation, and left. No 2 weeks notice, no explanation, nothing. Her boss called me, we'd had dinner with him and his wife a few times, asking if everything was okay. I remember standing in my kitchen thinking, why the hell would I know? We're literally divorced. Her best friend, Kate, called me in tears because apparently my ex had blocked her on everything, not just social media, her phone number, email, everything. And it wasn't just Kate. She'd blocked everyone, her entire friend group, CO workers, even her yoga instructor, who she'd been going to for like 3 years, reached out to me, trying to figure out what was going on. I started doing some digging. Yeah, I know, probably should have just stayed out of it. Her phone was disconnected. Her social media accounts? All deleted, not just deactivated, full-on deleted. She'd even closed her email accounts. It was like she was trying to erase herself from existence. The really messed up part? Her friends were genuinely worried something had happened to her, like they thought maybe she was in trouble or something. They kept calling me, but I told them I had nothing to do with her anymore. Her brother, who I used to be pretty tight with, wouldn't answer any of my calls. Neither would her parents, which was extra weird because her mom and I got along great. She used to call me her bonus son and everything. But now, radio silence. Obviously, they knew something, but they weren't sharing. About a month into her disappearance, I found out she'd also closed all her local bank accounts. Not transferred, closed. The bank manager, small town, everyone knows everyone, mentioned it casually when I was there dealing with some paperwork. Said she'd come in, closed everything out, and left with a cashier's check. Wouldn't tell them where she was going. The weirdest part of all this? I wasn't even that surprised. Shocked, yeah, but not surprised. It's like all those months of weird behavior had been leading up to this grand finale. The questions about our finances, the late-night phone calls, the sudden interest in my schedule. She'd been setting this up for months. Her friends eventually gave up trying to find her. What else could they do? She clearly didn't want to be found. But man, the theories never stopped. Every time I ran into one of them around town, they'd have some new idea about where she went or what she was doing. I tried to move on with my life. I mean, what else could I do? I had a house to maintain, a job to focus on, a life to live. And I simply forgot her, after I thought I had everything figured out. Like around 5 months after the whole vanishing act, I was actually doing pretty good. Started hitting the gym regularly, yeah, I know, typical divorced guy move. Got a promotion at work, and even started dating again. I'll call her Brittany. She's a pediatric nurse at the local children's hospital, and honestly, the complete opposite of my ex. All sunshine and bubbles and pink scrubs with little unicorns on them. We met when I was grabbing coffee at this little place near my office. She literally bumped into me and spilled her strawberry frappuccino all over both of us. Rom-com level meet cute, right? After apologizing like 50 times and insisting on paying for my dry cleaning, which I refused, she gave me her number. We started texting, and it just clicked. So yeah, life was getting good. Brittany and I were officially dating, I was killing it at work, and I was finally sleeping through the night without waking up stressed. Then, boom, guess who shows up at my door at 9 p.m. on a random Thursday? Yep, the ghost herself, my ex-wife. The timing couldn't have been worse. Brittany was over, we were making cookies and watching some Netflix show about baking. I hear this aggressive knocking, and when I open the door, there's my ex, looking like she'd been through hell and back. First thing out of her mouth, whose car is that in the driveway? Not hello, not even, hey, can we talk? Nope. She's fixated on Brittany's white Volkswagen Beetle, complete with a flower vase, yes, really, parked next to my car. I tell her it's my girlfriend's car, and holy cow, the look on her face. It was like I'd just told her I'd sold our house to a pack of wolves. She goes from looking desperate to straight up furious in about half a second. But here's where it gets really wild. Instead of talking about where she's been for the past 5 months, or why she's suddenly shown up at my door, she starts going off about how fast I moved on. Like, excuse me? You disappeared without a trace after blindsiding me with divorce papers, and you're mad that I'm dating someone? I can hear Brittany in the kitchen, probably wondering what's going on, and the whole situation is just surreal. My ex is standing there in my doorway looking like a mess, ranting about how I clearly never loved her if I could move on so quickly. Then she spots Brittany coming to check on me. Brittany, sweet soul that she is, actually waves and says, "Hi," with her typical cheerful smile. My ex takes one look at her and lets out this laugh. She turns back to me and goes, "Really? This is your type now? Some basic Barbie who bakes cookies?" That's when I got pissed. Look, you can come at me all you want, but Brittany, she's literally the nicest person I've ever met. She volunteers at animal shelters on weekends and cries during Disney movies. Going after her was crossing a line. But before I could say anything more, my ex switched gears completely. Suddenly, she's not interested in Brittany anymore. No, now she wants to talk about money, specifically claiming all the expensive jewelry and stuff she gave me during our marriage. The whiplash from "how dare you move on" to "where's my stuff" was wild. I'm standing there, trying to process this mood swing, while Brittany's quietly retreated back to the kitchen, bless her heart. She later told me she started stress baking a second batch of cookies. I tell my ex I sold most of it after the divorce and donated the rest to charity, which was true. It was part of my whole fresh start thing. Man, if I thought she was mad before, she completely lost it. Started calling me names, saying I had no right to sell her gifts, demanding I give her the money the whole time she's yelling. I'm just standing there thinking how strange life is. 5 months ago, this woman was my wife. We shared a bed, a life, everything. Now she's a stranger screaming on my doorstep while my new girlfriend stress bakes in the kitchen. I ended up closing the door in her face mid-rant. Probably not the most mature response, but hey, she lost the right to yell at me in my own house when she served me divorce papers over breakfast. I went back to the kitchen. Brittany just looked at me, handed me a warm cookie and said, So, that was interesting. God, I love how she can make even the most awkward situations better. But something told me this wasn't over. The way my ex had looked when she left, she wasn't done, not by a long shot. 3 days after the cookie incident, that's what Brittany calls it now, my phone starts buzzing at like 11 p.m. It's a number I haven't seen in months, my former brother-in-law Mike. Now, some backstory, Mike and I used to be really tight, like we'd go to football games together, grab coffee after work, that kind of thing. But when the divorce happened, he blocked me everywhere without even a goodbye. That stung more than I'd like to admit. So seeing his number pop up? Weird. I wish I could say I was mature about it, but the first thing out of my mouth was, "Oh, so you remember how to use a phone." He ignored the sass and jumped straight into this clearly rehearsed speech about how I needed to do the right thing and help his sister out. Kept going on about how she was family for 4 years, how I owed her this one thing, blah blah blah. The whole time I'm thinking, where was this family loyalty when she was serving me divorce papers over breakfast? But then he drops this bomb, man, if roles were reversed, she would have helped you out, no questions asked. I actually laughed out loud at that one, like full-on snorted. Because are we talking about the same person? The woman who wouldn't even tell me why she wanted a divorce, who disappeared without a trace, who showed up at my door and insulted my new girlfriend? That's who would have helped me out? I told him exactly what I told her. I sold the stuff, gave some to charity, end of story. He didn't like that answer. Started getting all aggressive, saying stuff like, "You're not the person I thought you were," and "I can't believe I was ever friends with someone like you." That's when I snapped. Told him that maybe he should ask his sister about all the expensive stuff I gave her, including the car she's still driving around in. Asked him if she told him about showing up at my house and insulting my girlfriend. Real curious if she'd mentioned disappearing for 5 months without a word to anyone. He got quiet for a second, and I could tell some of this was news to him, but instead of actually thinking about what I was saying, he doubled down. Started calling me selfish, said I was being petty, told me I was just bitter about the divorce. Here's the thing that really gets me, though. Throughout this whole conversation, he kept dancing around something, like there was clearly more to the story that he wasn't telling me. Every time I pushed back on why she needed the money so badly, he'd get all weird and vague about it. I ended up telling him that if his sister needed money so desperately, maybe she shouldn't have quit her 6-figure job and disappeared for months. That shut him up pretty quick. Then I hit him with a real kicker, told him that his sister wasn't worth staying married to, but at least I thought our friendship had been real. Guess I was wrong about that too. Hung up after that, blocked his number too, because why not? Everyone else in that family had blocked me months ago. Might as well return the favor. Brittany was staying over that night. She stays over most nights now, another thing that probably pissed off my ex, and she could tell something was up. Instead of pushing me to talk about it though, she just put on our comfort show and ordered late-night pizza. This girl, I swear, she just gets it. But lying there that night while Brittany was asleep next to me, I couldn't stop thinking about how weird this all was. My ex disappears for months, then shows up demanding money. Her brother, who hasn't spoken to me since the divorce, suddenly calls to guilt-trip me about helping her. None of it added up. I mean, what kind of trouble was she in that she needed money this badly? And why didn't she just sell the car I bought her if she was that desperate? That thing was worth way more than the jewelry she gave me. Less than 24 hours after the drama with Mike, I get this text from my ex at 4 a.m. Who texts at 4 a.m.? Unless something's seriously wrong, right? It was this long paragraph about how she needed to meet me one last time, said she'd tell me everything, the whole truth this time. My first instinct was to ignore it. I mean, I was done with the drama. Plus, Brittany and I had plans that day to go to this cute little farmer's market. But something about that text felt different from her usual demanding messages. Maybe it was the timestamp, maybe it was the way she wrote it, but it felt desperate. I showed it to Brittany over breakfast. She stays over most nights now, has basically taken over half my closet with her colorful scrubs. You know what she said? "Babe, you need closure. Go hear her out." Then she kissed my cheek and said she'd go to the farmer's market with her sister instead. Sometimes I wonder what I did to deserve someone this understanding. So I agreed to meet my ex, told her to come to this coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory, plus it's always busy, so she couldn't make a scene. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. She looked rough, like she hadn't slept in days. Gone was the power suit-wearing career woman I'd married. She was wearing sweats and looked like she'd been crying. She sat down and, for a minute, just stared at her hands. Then she started talking, and holy cow, you guys. Turns out she'd been cheating, but not just any regular cheating. She'd been having an affair with someone she met at her high school reunion. I recalled that reunion she insisted on going to alone, about 6 months into our marriage. She connected with some guy she used to date back in the day, and apparently they had this incredible connection or whatever. But here's where it gets really wild. After the divorce, they decided to go all in on their dream life. The dude had convinced her they should buy a farm. A farm! My ex-wife, who used to complain if her manicure got messed up, decided to become a farmer. They took all her divorce settlement money and bought this property in another state. I had to stop her there. "Wait," I said, "you left your six-figure job to become a farmer?" She actually looked embarrassed. Turns out neither of them knew the first thing about farming. I actually laughed. They had this romantic idea about living off the land or something, but reality hit them hard. They ended up having to hire actual farmers to run the place, which ate through their money fast. But wait, it gets better. Remember how she was so desperate for money? Well, turns out she's pregnant with Farm Boy's baby. They burned through all their savings trying to keep the farm running, and now they're broke, with a baby on the way. That's why she came back. She needed money for medical bills and baby stuff. I sat there for a good minute just processing all this. The woman who'd refused to get a dog because it was too much responsibility was having a baby with a wannabe farmer she'd known for barely a year. The whole thing was so absurd, I actually started laughing. She didn't appreciate that. Started crying, saying she knew she'd messed up, that she'd made a huge mistake, said she'd been too embarrassed to tell anyone where she really was, which is why she cut contact with everyone. Her family knew some of it, but not the whole story, especially not about how badly the farm was failing. Then she hit me with it. She actually asked if I'd consider giving her another chance, said she'd realized what a mistake she'd made, that farm boy wasn't who she thought he was, that she missed our life together. I looked at her, sitting there crying in a coffee shop, pregnant with another man's baby, asking me to take her back, and felt nothing. Actually, that's not true. I felt grateful that she'd served me those divorce papers, grateful that she'd shown her true colors, grateful for every red flag that had made me protect myself financially. Most of all, I felt grateful for Brittany, sweet, kind, drama-free Brittany, who was probably at the farmer's market right now, texting me pictures of puppies she saw and buying way too many succulents. I told my ex exactly that. Told her that her poor life choices weren't my problem anymore, that she gave up any right to my help when she cheated, when she lied, when she tried to manipulate me. The look on her face when I mentioned the cheating? Priceless. Guess she didn't think I'd figured that part out. She tried to argue, started saying something about how we'd been together for 4 years, how she still cared about me. I cut her off, told her I had to go. I needed to go buy some succulents for my girlfriend. Walking out of that coffee shop, I felt lighter somehow, like the last piece of a puzzle had finally fallen into place. Everything made sense now. The weird behavior before the divorce, the quick disappearance, the desperate return. But something told me this still wasn't over. My ex isn't the type to just accept defeat and walk away. Called it. She wasn't done. 2 days after our coffee shop chat, she showed up at my house again. This time, Brittany wasn't there. Night shift at the hospital, which was probably for the best considering what went down. My ex was in full meltdown mode, started banging on my door at midnight, yelling about how I owed her, how I was being selfish, how I had no right to judge her life choices. The neighbors probably got quite a show. I opened the door, mostly to stop the banging, and she just barged in, still ranting. That's when I'd had enough. 4 years together, and I'd never raised my voice at her, but this time, I lost it. Told her exactly what I thought about her cheating, about her running off to play farmer with her high school sweetheart, about her showing up here demanding money like she was entitled to it. Reminded her that she was the one who wanted the divorce, she was the one who disappeared, and she was the one who made her bed. Now she could lie in it. She tried to pull the pregnancy card again, started crying about medical bills and baby expenses. I just laughed and told her maybe she should sell that car I bought her. You know, the one she conveniently forgot about when asking for her gifts back. That's when she went nuclear. Started calling me every name in the book, said I was heartless, said she'd make me regret this. I grabbed my phone and told her if she didn't leave immediately, I was calling the cops. She thought I was bluffing. I wasn't. Started dialing right in front of her. You should have seen how fast she changed her tune when she heard the first ring. As she was leaving, more like storming out, she turned around and said something that actually made me laugh. I hope you and Barbie are very happy together. I just smiled and said we are. Slammed the door, blocked her number. Then I texted Brittany, who was on her break, about what happened. Her response? Want me to bring home donuts after my shift? Sugar makes everything better. And you know what? She was right. Not just about the donuts, but about everything being better. Better than it ever was with my ex. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting happy.